Hello everyone, I welcome you all once again in my YouTube channel, and today our chapter for analysis is Money and Credit, Economics Part Class 10. Well, this chapter throws light upon the history of money and its various forms. It is also an effort to make students understand the social situation in which these forms were used. Modern forms of money are linked to the banking system. The newer forms of money are slowly spreading with computerization of the banking system. This chapter also talks about digital transactions, which started by using bank to bank transfer through the internet or mobile phones, checks, ATM cards, credit cards, and point of sale, so called POS, swipe machines at shops. Credit is a crucial element in economic life, and this chapter talks about how it affects every group. Dearest students, our first topic will be money as a medium of exchange. The use of money spans a very large part of our everyday life. Goods are bought and sold by using money. Services are availed with money. A person holding money can easily exchange it for any commodity or service. Payments in money are thus most sought after. When money had not been invented, people employed barter systems to buy and sell their items. The major problem was about finding a willing buyer or seller. To buy and sell products in turn, both parties have to agree to sell and buy each other's commodities. This is known as double coincidence of wants. This happens only when a person desires to sell is exactly what the other wishes to buy. In a barter system, where goods are directly exchanged without the use of money, double coincidence of wants is an essential feature. In contrast, in an economy where money is used, there is no need for a double coincidence of wants. Dearest students, you must know that modern forms of money include currency, paper notes, and coins. Modern currency is not made of precious metals such as gold, silver, and copper. They are not everyday objects like grains either. The Reserve Bank of India issues currency notes on behalf of the central government in India. Indian law does not authorize any other individual or any organization to issue any currency. Indian Constitution and Indian law legalizes the use of rupees as a medium of payment that cannot be refused in settling transactions in India. Digital transactions are the newest form of currency that are being encouraged and widely used these days. Bank to bank transfer through the internet or mobile phones, checks, ATM cards, credit cards, and point of sale POS swipe machines at shops. Digital transactions are taking over cash in markets because they are hassle free and very quick. No individual in India can legally refuse a payment made in rupees. In India, during November 2016, currency notes in the denomination of rupees 500 and 1000 were declared invalid. People were asked to surrender these notes to the banks by a specific period and receive the new 500, 2000 or other currency notes. This was called demonetization. Dear students, our second topic will be deposits with banks. The other form in which people hold money is deposits with banks. Most people have a surplus amount of currency after they have used up their wages for their monthly expenditure. This extra cash is deposited by them in banks in an account of their name. Banks accept the deposits and also pay an amount as interest on the deposits to the people. People can withdraw the money from these accounts as and when they require. These deposits are called demand deposits because this can be withdrawn on demand. Demand deposits can also serve as a medium of exchange instead of cash. It is this facility which lends is the essential characteristics of money. Payment is possible through checks as well. A check is a paper instructing the bank to pay a specific amount from the person's account to the person in whose name the check has been issued. Demand deposits share the essential features of money, making it possible to directly settle payments without the use of cash. They constitute money in the modern economy. Modern currencies are closely linked to the working of the modern banking systems. Banks keep only a small proportion of deposits from people with themselves. Banks in India hold about 15% of their deposits as cash, currently as a reserve to pay the depositors who want to withdraw. Banks mediate between depositors and borrowers, and they charge a higher interest rate on loans than what they offer on deposits. The difference between the two rates is the source of revenue for banks. Banks use the major proportion of deposits to extend loans for various economic activities. Our next topic will be credit and its implications. Most transactional activities involve credit. Credit refers to an agreement in which the lender supplies the borrower with money, goods, or services in return for the promise of future payment. Credit might play a very vital and positive role or a negative and destructive role in lives, depending upon its source and terms. Credit is mainly required for crop production in rural areas, which involves considerable cost on seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, water, electricity, repair of equipment, etc. Farmers take crop loans at the beginning of the season and repay the loan after harvest because of the time period of 3 to 4 months between crop sowing and harvesting seasons. Repayment of the loan is crucially dependent on the income from farming. Failure of the crop might delay loan payments, for which then a person has to sell his assets or even take another loan to repay. This is an example of debt trap. The usefulness of credit depends upon the risk in the situation and whether there is some support in case of loss. Our next topic is terms of credit. Students, every loan agreement specifies an interest rate. This rate calculates the interest to be paid back to the lender along with the repayment of the principal. And most lenders demand collateral against loans. Now you may ask, sir, what is collateral? Actually, collateral is an asset that the borrower owns, such as land, livestock, building, vehicle, deposits with banks, etc., and uses this as a guarantee to the lender until the loan is repaid. The lender can sell the collateral to reimburse his loan in case the borrower fails to repay the loan. Property such as land titles, deposits with banks, livestock are common examples of collateral. Interest rate, collateral and documentation requirement and the mode of repayment together comprise terms of credit. The terms of credit vary substantially from one credit arrangement to another. Those vary depending upon the lender and the borrower. The other major source of cheap credit in rural areas are the cooperatives. Members of a cooperative pool their resources for cooperation in certain areas. Some examples of cooperatives are farmers' cooperatives, weavers' cooperatives, industrial workers' cooperatives, etc. Now we will come to know about formal and informal credit. 85% of the loans taken by poor households in the urban areas are from informal sources. Compared to this, rich households borrow only 10% of their loans from informal sources, while they borrow 90% from the formal sources. The formal sector meets only half of the total credit needs of the rural people. The remaining credit needs have to be met by the informal sectors. Most loans from informal sectors do little to increase the income of the borrowers. Banks and cooperatives should increase their lending, particularly in the rural areas, to reduce the dependence on the informal sector. The formal sector needs to diversify its lending activities because it is only the rich household who receive formal credit, whereas the poor have to depend on informal sources. It is very important that the formal credit is distributed more equally so that the poor can benefit from the cheaper loans. Well, student, now we will discuss that topic number 6, the last topic, that is self-help groups for the poor. You must know that rural areas are heavily dependent upon informal sectors for lending. This is because banks are not present everywhere. Lending from formal sectors is a little complicated as well. Bank loans require proper documents and collateral. Absence of collateral prevents the poor from borrowing from the bank. Informal lenders know the borrowers personally and give loans without collateral or paperwork. Money lenders are ready to give more loans to these people without repaying any prior loans. Money lenders charge very high rates of interest, manipulate the borrowers, and have no documentation of proof. Another way to lend more money through the formal sector is to organize rural poor, in particular women, into small self-help groups. In shortcut, contracted form, it is known as SHGS, and pool their savings. A typical self-help group has 15 to 20 members, usually belonging to one neighborhood, who meet and save regularly. Saving per member varies from rupees 25 to rupees 100 or more, depending on the ability of the people to save. Members can take small loans from the group itself to meet their needs. The group charges interest on these loans but less than what the money lender charges. The group becomes eligible for availing loan from the bank if they have been regular in paying back and saving. Loan is sanctioned in the name of the group. It helps in creating some self-employment opportunities for the members. Small loans are lent for releasing mortgaged land, for meeting working capital needs, for housing materials, and acquiring logistics like sewing machines, handlooms, cattle, etc. All important decisions are taken by the members. The group judges the purpose, amount interest to be charged, repayment schedule, and grants the loans. The group is also responsible for the repayment of the loan. Defaulters are taken and dealt with seriously in the group. This makes banks willing to lend to the poor woman when organized in SHGS, even without collaterals. SHGS help these borrowers to borrow without any collateral. Timely loans at a reasonable interest rate are facilitated through this. So students, while reading this chapter, you might have heard some terms like cooperatives. So what is cooperatives? Cooperative society refers to that type of business organization wherein people work together for a common goal, that is welfare of its members. Second, currency. Currency is the system of money. Third, transactions. Transactions means act of buying or selling. Next is authorize, means officially approve something. Fifth, terms of credit, terms on which credit is given. Next is debt trap. It is a trap where debt keeps increasing. Seventh, mortgage, a legal agreement by which a formal sector financing institution lends money against a collateral. And last one, self-reliant, means self-dependent. Now I have added here some videos for your better comprehension. I recommend everyone to watch the videos carefully.
Samir was at the bank as he wanted to put some money in a fixed deposit. Tina decided to accompany her father. Samir explained that keeping their savings in the bank is a good idea, as the money would not only be safe but would also earn interest. While she was waiting for her father to finish the formalities, she noticed that there were two counters with long queues. One of these was at the deposits counter. Her father explained that the deposits counter was where people deposited money into their account, either in cash or by check. The other line was at the withdrawals counter. She saw people counting money and she assumed it was the counter from where people withdrew money from their account. She also knew her father was opening a fixed deposit account, as he would earn a higher interest on his deposit. She concluded that the bank gets money in the form of bank deposits. In turn, the bank pays interest on these deposits. People can withdraw their money when they need it. She also saw another counter called loan assistance, where one person was signing a loan agreement. On their way back home, Samir explained that the bank extends loans to people for their needs using the money they have accumulated in the form of bank deposits. Banks are in a way mediators of money. They collect from depositors and lend it to borrowers. The bank charges a higher interest rate on lending than what they offer on bank deposits. For example, for the fixed deposit we hold with a bank, we will get an interest rate of 8.5% per annum. But if we were to take a loan from the bank, then they would charge an interest rate of around 14% per annum. The difference between the lending rate and the rate that is offered to depositors is the prime source of income for banks. Tina wondered what would happen if everyone withdrew their money at once. Samir said that it was highly unlikely that everyone would withdraw all their money at one go. However, each bank has a certain percentage of its deposits lying with the central bank of the country, which they could use at such times. Thanks to her visit, Tina now had a better idea about how banks worked. However, there was one thing that was still unclear to Tina: the role of the Reserve Bank of India. Samir wants to borrow money to renovate his house. He visits his bank to meet the loan officer. They discuss the different aspects related to the loan. Generally, the bank demands some form of a security, also known as collateral, before it issues a loan. The collateral is usually an asset owned by the borrower, such as deposits with bank, livestock, vehicle, or land. In Samir's case, the fixed deposit which he already has with the bank will be the collateral. The loan officer also informs Samir that the bank charges an interest of 10% per annum on the loan. Insofar as the documentation is concerned, Samir submits documents such as a copy of his PAN card, address proof, salary slips, etc. Samir decides to repay the loan in 1 year in 12 equal installments. He signs post-dated checks for each month. The amount for each month includes the principal plus the interest components. A few days after completing the formalities, Samir signs the loan agreement. Samir receives the loan amount in the form of a check from the bank. Overall, Samir finds the process very simple. An arrangement where the lender provides a sum of money or goods and services to a borrower in return for the promise of future payment is called credit or loan. The need for credit arises in a person's life for many reasons. For example, in Samir's case, he needed credit to renovate his house. Every loan agreement specifies the terms of credit, which includes information about interest payable, collateral, mode of repayment selected, and documentation requirements. Are you wondering why so many formalities, including documentation, were required for issuing the credit? This is because all credit from banks and cooperatives are part of the formal sector supervised by the Reserve Bank of India. This supervision is essential as it protects the interests of both the borrowers and the lenders. Bhima works at the local sugar mill. For some months of the year, the mill shuts down. During these months, Bhima takes up odd jobs to sustain his livelihood. His daughter's marriage has been finalized, and he needs to raise money towards the marriage expenses. The house in which Bhima and his family live is not their own. In fact, Bhima does not own any valuable assets. The only livestock that Bhima owns are half a dozen chicken. The local cooperative bank would have lent him the money had Bhima been on the regular employee roll of the sugar mill. The bank would not risk giving Bhima money without a steady income or collateral. The only option that Bhima is left with is to get credit from the informal sector, which includes moneylenders, employers, traders, friends, and relatives. Bhima decides to borrow money from the local moneylender in his village. The moneylender charges an interest rate of 30% per annum. The moneylender asks him to repay the entire loan at the end of the 6th month. Bhima is fully aware that if he fails to repay, he or members of his family would have to work as bonded agricultural laborers on the land owned by the moneylender. Do you think that moneylenders often use unfair means to recover their money? Yes, they do, because the informal sector is not regulated by anyone. Samir and Bhima's cases show us how the reason for obtaining credit can be different in urban and rural areas. You also saw how credit can be obtained from the formal and the informal sector. Beena Devi. She leads the self-help group named Stri Shakti in her village. Have you ever heard about self-help groups? Do you know what kind of work they do? A self-help group, or SHG, is a voluntary association that comprises 10 to 20 members belonging to one neighborhood. In the past, self-help groups were started in India with the help of NGOs. These days, the government and banks increasingly support the formation of self-help groups. Stri Shakti is an example of a woman's only self-help group. All the members of this group contribute an amount varying from Rs 25 to Rs 100 per month as savings to the group. The contribution amount is dependent on the saving capacity of the individual. Once enough money is saved, the members of the group are issued loans to meet their personal requirements. The loan is given without any collateral. The rate of interest is usually lower than what the local moneylender charges. Based on the progress of the group becomes eligible to avail loans from the bank after a year or two. Bankers sanction loans in the name of the group. These loan amounts are used by the members to create opportunities of self-employment. This could include payments to release mortgaged land, buy seeds, fertilizers for farming, or assets such as cattle and poultry. The loans are also given to purchase looms or sewing machines. while semi-literate women like Dina are the leaders of the group. The group members collectively take all the decisions related to savings and lending activities. Members who are quarrelsome and irregular in payments lose their membership. The members in the group regularly monitor the other members who have availed of the loans. The entire group is responsible for repayment of the loans. Thus, bankers are willing to lend money to the poor members of SHG, even when they have no collateral to keep with the bank. Apart from lending money, the group also helps other women in the neighborhood to become financially self-reliant. The group also provides a platform for social issues such as empowering women, fighting domestic violence, developing leadership abilities, increasing school enrollments, and improving nutrition and birth control awareness. Self-help groups like Stree Shakti have played a very important role in improving the economic condition of people living in the rural areas across India. However, they do have their share of problems. Most people make timely repayments. However, some might miss a payment or will not pay at all. Timely repayment and recovery from defaulters of loan are some of the primary concerns. Marketing is another problem that needs attention. A sizable amount of what members of these groups produce is sold within the village. However, it is difficult to sell these products in markets outside. But all said and done, self-help groups have proven beyond doubt that if one has the enterprise and the intent, then a successful socio-economic model can be implemented.
Barter was one of the first forms of goods exchange systems developed by mankind. When early humans found that there were few items which they needed but could not produce it by themselves, the barter system began. It involved two people exchanging surplus goods and services between them. But barter system could take place only when there was double coincidence of wants. Barter system had many difficulties, and some of them are lack of divisibility. If the other person needed only a part of the good and not the whole commodity, there was no way to divide it. Lack of common measure of value. It was difficult to match the exact values of two goods with each other, which needed to be exchanged. Example, cow and crops. Double coincidence of wants. If a transaction of barter had to take place, it was necessary that both persons were indeed in requirement of each other's goods. Before the invention of coins, barter system was used to facilitate the exchange of surplus goods between ancient people. But barter system was not without its problems, which prompted humans to invent the first coins made from animal skins, which were usually branded with the seal of the reigning kings. Money is divided into different types, which are commodity money, metallic money, paper money, bank money, and negotiable instruments such as bonds, bank drafts, credit cards, etc. The three functions of money are 1. Primary functions such as medium of exchange and measure of value. 2. Secondary functions such as deferred payments and transfer value. 3. Contingent functions like basis of credit and increasing productivity of capital.
Samir was at the bank as he wanted to put some money in a fixed deposit. Tina decided to accompany her father. Samir explained that keeping their savings in the bank is a good idea, as the money would not only be safe but would also earn interest. While she was waiting for her father to finish the formalities, she noticed that there were 2 counters with long queues. One of these was at the deposits counter. Her father explained that the deposits counter was where people deposited money into their account, either in cash or by check. The other line was at the withdrawals counter. She saw people counting money and she assumed it was the counter from where people withdrew money from their account. She also knew her father was opening a fixed deposit account, as he would earn a higher interest on his deposit. She concluded that the bank gets money in the form of bank deposits. In turn, the bank pays interest on these deposits. People can withdraw their money when they need it. She also saw another counter called loan assistance, where one person was signing a loan agreement. On their way back home, Sameer explained that the bank extends loans to people for their needs using the money they have accumulated in the form of bank deposits. Banks are in a way mediators of money. They collect from depositors and lend it to borrowers. The bank charges a higher interest rate on lending than what they offer on bank deposits. For example, for the fixed deposit we hold with a bank, we will get an interest rate of 8.5% per annum. But if we were to take a loan from the bank, then they would charge an interest rate of around 14% per annum. The difference between the lending rate and the rate that is offered to depositors is the prime source of income for banks. Tina wondered what would happen if everyone withdrew their money at once. Sameer said that it was highly unlikely that everyone would withdraw all their money at one go. However, each bank has a certain percentage of its deposits lying with the central bank of the country, which they could use at such times. Thanks to her visit, Tina now had a better idea about how banks worked. However, there was one thing that was still unclear to Tina: the role of the Reserve Bank of India. Do you know what the text Reserve Bank of India, guaranteed by the central government on a currency note mean? It means that the note is issued by the Reserve Bank of India on behalf of the Government of India. The paper note can be used anywhere in India to settle monetary transactions and cannot be refused as a medium of exchange. The Reserve Bank of India, or the RBI, is India's central bank. Apart from issuing currency notes, the RBI plays many important roles. Forming and executing monetary policies of the country is the main function of the RBI. It monitors inflation and the financial stability of the country, thus promoting growth of the economy. Apart from issuing currency, coins and notes, it also destroys currency not fit for circulation. The RBI also acts as a banker to the government. It loans money to the state and central governments and also maintains deposits made by these governments. RBI is commonly referred to as the banker's bank, as all banks maintain accounts with it. These accounts help RBI settle interbank transactions. RBI also provides credit facility to banks in times of need and is often called the lender of last resort. The RBI also supervises formal sector lending through banks and cooperative societies. It ensures that the banks give loans to the small farmers, small-scale traders, and businessmen. RBI manages the foreign exchange of the country by maintaining foreign reserves in dollars and facilitates international trade. The exchange rate is also monitored to avoid any fluctuations in the external value of the rupee. By performing these functions, the RBI is instrumental in the development and growth of our country.